Okay, good morning, everybody. This is Bart Davis. I'm the sales manager here at Belzona, Houston. And every month we hold these webinars to help you out. You will receive one professional development hour or continuing education credit for attending. And today's webinar, one of my favorites, is Understanding the Impacts of the EPA's B1 and QQQ Compliance Initiative. Yikes. Everybody's got a boss. So in 2018, the EPA's boss, the Inspector General, told them they were doing a pretty crappy job of overseeing benzene emissions in the United States refineries. And what he pointed out was an overall lack of action. Those of you who are joining me from the Gulf Coast can zoom in on the target locations there and see that a lot of them are clustered right here in our backyard. So a copy of this presentation is going to be available to you. And throughout these slides, what I've done for all of you EHS folks is put links to some very useful EPA documents. We'll be exploring those documents somewhat. The EPA has set your action level of benzene concentration in the air that we breathe at 9 micrograms per cubic meter. So that's 9/1 millionths of a gram per cubic meter of air. So it's pretty stringent. And what you're going to see is that um, from a lack of action side, there's a photograph of a fence monitor right there, that it's kind of tough to hit those requirements. So what this graph shows is one single plant that was down below that red line is the that 9 micrograms. So they dip down below it, but you can see over that 4-year period how things change. So they spend a good part of that period way above that line with some big spikes. So that's the kind of information that the EPA looks at, and the kind of thing that spawns a lot of this action that we're seeing. And they break it down into racial and income demographics. So a lot of the background of this, or a lot of the action that they take, is based on pressure from people in the world, other government agencies, and a lot of it is about environmental justice. So why does that boss care so much? Because he's getting pressure too. Like I said, everybody's got a boss. So back in 1982, just a little background, I live south of Texas Avenue in Texas City. They try to make that a green zone, but there's still some homes back there. So a few blocks away was the Amoco refinery. And at 22 years old, I guess you could say I was in that 54% poverty level. And yeah, it did smell pretty bad. But I got used to it. I worked offshore, so I got a good dose of clean air all the time. Came back, and then after a couple of days, couldn't smell anything. But in reality, most of the people on this webinar spend at least 40 hours a week in this kind of environment, in that refinery chemical plant kind of environment. So it's where we work, it's what we do. So each one of us cares, and we should, about emission leaks. But back to the EPA, remember, they're from the government and they're here to help. So the EPA has a free publication to guide you through your LDAR best practices. I was able to read it a couple days ago, and it's very complete. So they pretty much lay out the whole model LDAR program. And in my world, before the Belzona world, it was a while back, but what we really thought about with emissions leaks was a lot of tightening valves and things. It was a lot of fittings, but we're going to see that there's a lot more to that. And really a common theme with the EPA is time. So how much time you have to report, how much time you have to repair. Another common theme is going to be money. So money in the way of fines. You'll see that that's coming too. So how do you respond when the boss is upset? When you know that he's working on that report that makes you look bad, is you get out in front of it. So you remind everyone that the law has been on the books for a long time. And then you announce a action enforcement alert. So basically what you've done is you've shot a, you know, round across the bow and you've told everybody you're on the way. So that's what the enforcement uh, alert looks like. I've seen it on the desks of you EHS guys, so I know it's something that everybody's paying attention to. Of course, you know they told you so because they've got emission standards for refineries and air, and then their wastewater systems going way back to the late 1980s. So they're going to be carrying the CFR 40 in their hands when they show up and saying, hey, man, this has been on the books a long time. We're just here trying to make sure everybody's doing things right. And there's Mr. Peck making sure it's going to happen. So next, what you do is you cast a real wide net. So it's not just a refinery. Let's look at the terminals within those refineries as well. So let's get all those tanks. Let's get all that flare lines. Let's get everything. Then you look at ethylene plants. You look at chemical plants. You look at coke byproduct recovery plants, and then you go into all of the waste treatment facilities that dispose benzene for all these plants as well. So nice wide net, a lot of people to talk to, a lot of people to find if that's the case. So B1, what is B1? So B1, I put this little glossary together. I think we all know what the EPA is, but B1 is actually Benzene Waste Operations NESHAP or NESHAP. So NESHAP is National Standards for Hazardous Air Pollutants. So if people ask you what that is, it's B1. I just say benzene waste management. And QQQ equipment, I threw that down there at the bottom because refinery wastewater systems, the equipment there is subject to VOC monitoring, and that is considered QQQ equipment. So all things that you might hear when somebody's looking at emissions. So as I mentioned, the first really attempts, the first repairs everybody's going to look at is, hey, let's tighten up the bonnets. Let's replace bowls. Let's get new gaskets in place. Let's take care of those valves, those pumps, those flanges. And the EPA in that document I showed you earlier, they actually point that out. They tell you how to do that. There's a lot of people in the world, a lot of gasket manufacturers out there that do this. A lot of LDAR. I mean, LDAR is leak detection and repair. So a lot of the LDAR people are, ready to tighten that equipment up for you as well on the R side of LDAR. But it also, as we mentioned, it also includes the sewer systems. So I don't think too many people have a clue on how to seal up leaks in sewer systems. That's what we've found anyway. We've seen a lot of attempts with different products that weren't really meant to bond to concrete and steel at the same time or don't have the flexibility to hold up. Certainly, you don't see any guidelines from the EPA on how to do it. They just say you have to do it. So, all of those hard to seal components in the wastewater side, those flexible floating roofs, the flare piping, all the stuff that's really tough to fix. That's kind of where Belzona comes in. We come in a lot of times when it's things that people don't know how to fix, so they call us. Do know that it's on their radar. So if you look at how this enforcement alert really caught the eye of a lot of the refinery executives and a lot of the EHS folks, it was when the fines started coming down. So up in Whiting, Indiana, BP has a refinery. It's the oldest one in the world, or maybe not the world, but the oldest one in the United States anyway. Actually goes back into the 1800s, so the late 1800s. Um, and God knows their um, sewer system. I'm sure, you can update equipment all the time above ground, but do you really go down and replace your sewer system a whole lot? Probably not. So obviously things have been leaking in there for many, 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 many years. And what the EPA did was assess them a $25 million fine, $25.1 million to be somewhat exact. Um, that was just the money that went to back to the United States. So another $6.3 million went to the state of Indiana. So that sounds like a lot of money right out of the box here, over $30 million. But they also targeted the repairs there. They said, here's what you have a certain amount of time to get all these repairs done. And that adds up to about $200 million in monitoring and repair upgrades. So, BP is on the hook for, $240 million or so from this first visit. Um, Fines are assessed by the day in some cases. So per equipment by the day. So that can add up really quick. If you look at their sewer system, you're looking at 8,000 individual components that they identified within that refinery that need sniffed and sealed if they are leaking. 8,000 of them. So the last guy that I spoke with down here on the Gulf Coast about B1 said the scuttlebutt is that the EPA ran out of their budget because we all thought they'd be down here around October, beginning of October, and that we'd be neck deep in them. But um, we think they ran out of money, and we think they're coming down probably here in a couple weeks. So first part of 2025. They obviously just got a big $25 million boost to their budget. So they've got the money to spend on some hotel rooms and some agents to come down and sniff around, so to speak. So we think that's coming. So what we do is smart people are getting out in front of that, and even smarter people are getting us involved because we can take care of this kind of stuff for you. And maybe not every single little bonnet leak you're going to put Belzona on, but certainly the tough stuff, the what we do best is we're ready to help you with that. So we're going to explore some of those solutions here a little bit. And first, I want to tell you kind of how we're set up. So what we consider our clients, we consider those to be technical partners with Belzona. And that means that we're extremely involved, very hands-on. We have invested in a network of technical consultants. That's George Merrick in your bottom right-hand corner there. He's just one of 15 different technical consultants that we have spread out across our territory in the Gulf of Mexico and up into Shreveport. And then also our offshore guys too. Don't see too much benzene out there, but you never know. So what these guys are for is they're there to put their eyes and their experience. I think George has been with us 16 or 17 years. Most of the guys have been here that long, to put their eyes on your assets and say, okay, yeah, we have a solution for that, to work with you to find out who you want to do it. Do you want our trained people at BHI Coatings or in-house contractor to do the installation, or do you have a contractor that you want us to train and oversee? Is it going to be your own maintenance guys? Maybe not, but however it is, George is there. All of our guys are there to help you from the first job walk all the way through the completion of the project. Now, George isn't on there, and the guys aren't on their own because they have the backup of our engineering department. So, how it works is you they go out, take a look at it, or you send us some pictures, or we figure out what's going on. And in the case of this first wastewater benzene emissions leak coming out of this wastewater system, we look at this product. So our chemical engineer he's actually got 107 products um, from Belzona to choose from. Not all of those are suitable, certainly for this application, but he's got a variety. So normally he doesn't say, hey, here's this one product that's going to work. He's going to combine products. So basically combine a solution for you. And in this case, we know that this particular product has a very high bond strength to concrete. The 4361 is what we use in our chemical containment areas. So it's got that flexibility that you need to be able to last a long time and be able to take the movement and the seasonal changes you see with your concrete. Um, so 4361, great top coat, but we need something underneath there to seal up a lot of the leaks and fix some of the pitting in the steel and get some of those transitions down before we put this reinforced coating. And we are going to reinforce this with some fiberglass too to give it even better strength. So the other thing is it going to hold up to benzene? So you'll find that Belzona has some of the most tested products out there. So he's going to refer to the chemical resistance chart, but he's also a chemist. He's a chemical engineer. So if we don't have an exact test, he knows how to figure out if this is product. Because let's face it, inside of a lot of these sewers, inside of a lot of the flare systems that we see, certainly a lot of the tanks that we patch. There's a lot more in there than just benzene. So it could be multiple waste products or processed products. So from there it goes. Either he puts his other engineering hat on or he passes it over to our mechanical engineering division, and we write up a job scope which points out all the different materials that are used. This one you'll see has a number of different materials besides just the 1111 and the 4361. So it has your primers, it has your reinforcement, and it has some emergency leak stop products too, in case there's active flow or there's active emissions. We also concentrate on the surface cleanliness, in this case CSP 3 to 5. Um, and then you're going to get a written procedure. So the written procedure comes with pictures. So we have found, especially having in our own contracting arm here, that it's so good for our guys. It's certainly good for any contractor to be able to visualize what he's going to do. So we put together pictures in our procedures. We lay out every single step, and then we also lay out the inspection criteria. So this is good for you to have in your hand too. So when you get this package from us, George would have this in his hand. Your guys would have this in your hand, and you are able to oversee and make sure that the contractor is following all these steps as well. Then, of course, you're going to get some QA/QC documents in the end. There's a example of QA/QC documents that come along with the package. So that's that's something that can go in your file that where you have documentation of the actual repair. Um, the other thing that you're going to see in a lot of these applications is that they're there's some of them that are the same, but there's a lot of different type of applications there. So some of them are easier than others, some are tougher than others. The This fairly simple on a wastewater treatment system. These get sniffed and they get marked off the B1 leaking components list. But when you get into some of these tank leaks, you really need some experts doing those. So BHI coatings, that's all we do is put on Belzona. We're a 24/7 full service provider for everything's Belzona. We maintain relationships with other contractors, though. I just talked to a tank repair contractor today about a floating roof application. So we're working with those guys as well. We're coming up with custom solutions for a lot of these tough areas. In that case, it was one of the legs up there had a crack around the weld plate at a refinery who's trying to catch up with all this. So people were working on this stuff every single day. So we've seen a lot of it. So if you look at the EPA, back to those guys again, they're from the government, they're here to help. You've got 15 days to make your first attempt repair on a fixed roof tank. You may not even have a way to get up there yet. So, if you are inspecting it, somebody's gone up there and sniffed it. So you've got a way to do that. But, can you get a whole crew up there, especially on these floating roofs? So, 30 days to get it completed. So you have 30 days between 15 days to start and another, 30 days to get the whole thing done. And that's on a fixed roof. You look at some of the QQQ equipment, not the floating roof stuff, but all these other things, you may only have 5 days after you sniff it to get it something done about it. 5 days. So you need a lot of resources. You need a lot of help to be able to avoid those fines and be able to get in there and do things not only correctly, but quickly. Um, why do they give you a little bit longer on floating roofs, 45 days? Because they are not easy. Um, they're not easy to get to. They're not easy to repair. Lots of times you got to drop product down to reduce flows, especially on active leaks. So you really need a technical partner that has not only the experience, but all the resources, the products to do it right and do it right the first time. So we've been tackling floating roof leaks for a while, and we used to do them one way. We do them a little different now. We do them. We really get after it. We fix them in a number of ways and use a number of products on them because they are tough and they're hard to prep those areas too. So by far the star of this, our favorite application, our specification for floating roofs is Belzona 7311, which is a fatigue-resistant structural adhesive. Probably the toughest or most tested anyway, Belzona that's ever been on the market. It's been out several years now. So this is what we use to like bond on stairs on a tank or bond on handrails offshore. So we use this. It's proven to be as strong as a weld. It has a um, cycle test. It's actually a cycle to failure versus strep aptitude test that where we cycled it 1 million cycles at 63.1% with an alternating stress aptitude of plus or minus 2.526 megapascals. So you're looking at something that has been uh, tested where you can take that information, plug it into a finite element analysis program, and satisfy the requirements to be able to use it in some of these very high risk applications. Um, but of course, sealing a floating roof on a petroleum tank is pretty nasty work. So you'll see multiple products in this repair over there on the second page in. It talks about 9611 and 1212. So those are some of our super rapid um, surface tolerant epoxies so they can work in the presence of oil and with very little prep just to get everything stopped. And then after that, once you get the leak sealed, then you can come in and do your prep that's required to get some of these higher, more advanced products in place. We're also using reinforcement and we're making much larger repairs. We're kind of trying to tie a lot of stuff together. So we're not just going in and you got a 1 inch hole and we're making a 2 inch patch. We're reinforcing the entire area and making sure it's done properly. Um, here's your step-by-step pictures of that application. So for your contractor, and there's some finished photographs of the repair of some really bad B1 leaking areas on a floating roof, all within the target time. So we do a lot of other roof repairs too. You see a lot of different kinds of roofs out there in the world. Here on your left is a geodome leaking at the seams. So in that case, we're using membrane technology. So it's the same kind of rubberized product that we use in a lot of ceiling roofs in buildings to keep the rain out. So it's a great product from a flexibility standpoint. 2211 on the right, that's an elastomeric product. So you see that. That's actually a picture. It doesn't look the prettiest, I guess, on the right, but that's after 7 years. So still holding tight. That is a polyurethane elastomer, so Belzona product. So same thing. It has that time to good long-term repair and has that consistency to be able to flex with the movement, not only that the environment puts on it, but all those people that go up there to inspect that are walking on it, making pop and move. Um, we did talk about flare systems a little bit. So, as you know, man, the flare system, I look at that like the intestines of a plant. I mean, it runs everywhere. It takes waste away. Sometimes whatever it's you fed it is just sitting there at the bottom of the bottom of the pipe, and it's cooking away, and it's creating gases, and it's doing what happens in your intestines. But in pipe can't hold up to a lot of that stuff, so it's eating away the internal wall thickness of that pipe, or eating away at the wall thickness from the inside. So we make these repairs sometimes in a big way, sometimes just localized. In the left scene up there, you can see some of our crew active in using a traditional Belzona composite that does have great leak repair capability to totally coat a very long section of flare line. On the right, what you see is Super Wrap, or actually Super Wrap 2. That's our engineered composite system. So it's for ASME compliant repairs. What's that all about? You may have seen it at an earlier webinar, but basically the product is pre-qualified using testing in accordance with the PCC2, which is a post-construction um, guide. It basically tells you everything about how to weld a patch on, how to fix stuff. And it has an entire section, 401 and 402, two sections, for the repair of pipe, for long-term repair of pipe. So it goes through a bunch of testing. This is some testing that we did here in the lab in Houston for the Super App product. And then the nice thing about it is that it fulfills the requirements of API 570 for piping, for API 510 for pressure vessels, and for API 653. So when we get into some of these storage tanks, we can do an engineered repair with a designated lifetime. Uh, Same thing. A full package is always going to come with a Super Wrap 2 repair because we're running those calculations that are laid out in ASME PCC2, plugging the data, the testing data from the material in there, plugging your operating conditions into those formulas, and coming out with the equations that tell us how long and how thick we need to make the repair. And it also helps us with selecting the right products as well. So we have various different materials that are qualified. And uh, who's putting it on? Somebody has to be qualified to put it on. With this particular product, you go through a full day course here at our location in Alvin, Texas. It's a fairly intense course, so it covers a lot of the leak sealings uh, products and procedures that we've seen before, the plate bonding and the plugging. And then it also, of course, has the full composites class for the Super Wrap 2, the carbon fiber material. So somebody has to have that cert to be able to do these installations. We also have contractors throughout our territory that we've trained in this and offshore to do these Super App 2 applications. So what's that mean for you? Not only that you can get it done, but that you can also get the paperwork and a certification so that you can put that in your MOC paperwork. So now you have a design life, you have what we consider to be a, um, a long-term repair. So everything that you need. We also realize, especially with our contracting service, we run into a lot of stuff and we need help sometimes beyond just the Belzona toolbox. So we have assembled a lot of emergency response type products for leak control. So not really cleaning up spills. That's somebody else's game. What we're doing is trying to stop active leaks. So through our contracting arm, what we decided was let's let the world have these products too that we've used so successfully. So you can contact us. We can set up a training for you. We can supply these materials that can stop active leaks. And then once you get everything plugged up, patched up, that's when you can come in with the Belzona and make a more long-term type repair. Um, so the big thing is you do have to make long-term type repairs. That's each piece of B1 equipment that's modified, to use temporary controls. So basically, if you plug it and patch it, they want a timeline. They want you to upgrade those temporary controls to permanent controls. So how do you do that? You do that with an engineered repair. You do that with documentation. You do that with paperwork that proves a lifespan of the upgrade that you've made or that change to that equipment that you've made. So that's the resource that we have here for you through our engineering department, through our contractor OQ department, through our tracking of the applications and the QA/QC process that we have all of that documentation that shows that you've done what you need to do to get a good long-term repair because the fines rack up. As I mentioned, daily fines. So, you know, $5,000 a day may not sound tough, but if you have 8,000 locations at $5,000 a day, that's a lot of money. So I've heard that magic number that I've heard around was $45,000 a day. Well, that's just on one piece of equipment. So you can imagine if you're paying by the piece of equipment, what you have to do. And back to social justice. You think the fines in there? No, BP had to pay another $5 million to replace older vehicles within the community. So basically, you're rolling out $5 million worth of electric school buses up there in Whiting, Indiana, as punishment for people breathing your benzene out of the air. So, like I say, we all want to work in the nicest place that we can. We all want, but we want to do our job to keep energy popping in this country. So, clean it up. Let us help you, and thank you for your time.